Let's get more on the escalating stoush between the government and the Greens in federal parliament. It's been a big week in Canberra. Greens leader Adam Bandt is threatening legal action against the Attorney General over comments linking him to violence at pro-Palestinian rallies, while the Greens are accusing Labor of complicity in genocide. We're now joined by Queensland Greens MP Max Chandler-Mather. Max, good morning. Thanks for giving up your Friday morning and getting up early to speak with us.
Thanks for having me.
I wanted to start off, is your leader serious about taking legal action against the Attorney General? Because presumably that sort of thing would involve the expenditure of quite a bit of public money.
Well, I think that's a matter that we'll leave between the Attorney General and his decision about whether or not to apologise. But what this is about is the fact that Australia and the Labor government has not taken a single action to put pressure on Israel to stop its genocide in Gaza. We just saw a report on your news around the bombing of a school that has killed at least 23 women and children. And the Labor government refuses to ban two-way arms trade with Israel. It refuses to cancel the $917 million contract it signed with blacklisted Israeli weapons company Elbit Systems. It refuses to put any pressure on Israel. And let's be clear, every time Israel commits an atrocity and it looks around the world and waits for consequences and none come, it is emboldened to keep the genocide going on in Gaza. We saw Spain this morning or overnight. It has formally joined.
I want to get to that in a second,
yes.
But I just wanted to ask, so just generally though, do you think it's a good idea for the Greens leader to take legal action against the Attorney General?
Well, again, I think asking me to comment on the specifics of a case like that, I mean, outrageous comments by the Attorney General, completely baseless and without fact. And again, this is an attempt to distract from the fact that the Labor government is complicit in a genocide being carried out by Israel in Gaza. That is what this is. All of these comments and attacks on the Greens are an attempt to get the media and us talking about protests and accusations and away from the fact that this Labor government continues to support the invasion of Gaza, refuses to take any meaningful action to put pressure on Israel to cease its genocide in Gaza. We saw Spain overnight. It has formally joined the case, South Africa's case at the ICJ against Israel for its genocide in Gaza. We, this morning, the Greens, are calling on the Australian government to follow Spain and support South Africa's case, formally join it at the ICJ. Now, that would be a meaningful action that the Australian government could take. Up to this point, it has taken zero actions to put pressure on Israel.
Sorry to interrupt there. There's just a few things in there. Labor is going to say that the Foreign Minister Penny Wong has called for a ceasefire on multiple occasions, and they would also strongly reject that they've done anything to support the invasion of Gaza. Just back home, I mean, this debate started this week because of concerns about attacks on electoral officers. The debate seemed to become more and more febrile as the week went on. Given all the tensions in the Australian community at the moment, and this is a very charged issue, do all politicians have a responsibility to be very cautious with the language that they use?
Of course, and again, what is causing social unrest is the fact that the Australian government is not taking any meaningful action to stop Israel and put pressure on Israel to stop its genocide in Gaza. And I'm not talking about weasel words, I'm talking about what other countries have done. Say Spain, which has just formally joined the case at the ICJ against Israel. 143 countries have formally recognised the state of Palestine, including Spain recently and Ireland as well, something the Australian government still refuses to do. It could cancel and ban two-way arms trade with Israel. It could, like the Netherlands, ban the export of parts for the F-35 jets that Israel are currently using to bomb civilians in Gaza. Those are all things the Australian government could do and refuses. In fact, the only actual material action it has taken in regards to this conflict has been against the Palestinians. They paused UNRWA funding, aid funding for Palestine, for 48 days, $6 million. They temporarily cancelled visas of Palestinians attempting to flee the conflict. So on the other side, has there been any material action taken against Israel? Any form of sanction? They could sanction the Israeli war cabinet. They could do that, and they refuse. They have sanctioned other countries around the world, but apparently Israel's mass murder of civilians does not warrant any material action from the Australian government. Now,
the government would push back pretty strongly against some of those things you're saying about defence trade and the rest of it. I just did want to ask, they've had this hospital bombing overnight. What's your reaction, school bombing, apologies, overnight, and what's your reaction to that? And does this debate that is happening here domestically take the focus off what's actually happening on the ground?
On that question, exactly what I keep trying to point out, that this is an attempt to distract from what's going on in Gaza, and it is awful continuation of a genocide. These 23 women and children, each of them has individual lives. They love each other, they've lost, and now their lives have been snuffed out because the international community, including Australia, has catastrophically failed to do anything to put pressure on Israel to stop taking these actions. Let's be clear about this. This is a state of Israel which has been found by the ICJ to be plausibly carrying out a genocide in Gaza, and it has not received a single sanction from the Australian government. The Australian government does engage in two-way arms trade with Israel. It does, even under the admission of the government. Even their claim is that the weapons that were exported to Israel were then exported back to Australia.
Come back to Australia,
but that's two-way arms trade. That is money going to Israeli weapons companies. Companies that are manufacturing weapons. By the way, Elbit Systems, the $917 million contract reported to the ABC, signed by the Australian Defence and a defence contract. Elbit Systems manufactured the drones that Israel used to murder the Australian aid worker, Zomi Franken. Now, why on earth would we not cancel that contract?
We are getting short on time. There's just a couple of things I wanted to just get your opinion on. What did you make yesterday of the decision by the new Corruption Commission not to take a further look at the findings of the Robodebt Royal Commission?
Well, I mean, this has Robodebt was a disgraceful action by the coalition government, and we should be doing everything we can to investigate it to the nth degree to make sure there's justice for the victims of that disgraceful scandal. And I should note that even under the current welfare system in Australia, the one overseen by this government, it continues to destroy people's lives by forcing them to live on poverty payments. And they're still, by the way, pursuing debts. And I'm sure you've seen the Vision, and there's been a fair bit of scrutiny of the media recently, including at Channel 9. What did you make of Peter Costello's encounter with a journalist from The Australian yesterday? Oh, look, I'll leave that to the commentariat to talk about. I only briefly saw it as I was getting on the plane last night, but it seems like a silly spectacle compared to the things that are going on in the world right now.